Before I start the final part of this restoration, I wanted to address some questions that have been asked on part 3. One of them had to do with the trash compactor. Some people were saying that the trash compactor looked like it wasn't very fun to play with because of its position within the playset. The reason that I lifted the playset up in the previous video to install the trash compactor was only necessary for one reason. That's because I had a towel down on the counter, and when I was going to slide the playset in, if I'd done that, the towel would have bunched up. So that was a very simple reason. The playset is easily accessible, as you can see. It pulls in and out very quickly, and you can often play with it outside of the playset if you want to for easier access. So there's the answer to that question. Playset just slides right in, and I was just lifting it over because of this towel. Alright, now on to the cannon. There's been some nitpicking about my mention that the cannon was part of the Death Star's planetary destruction setup. The real truth of the matter is, it's a Kenner playset. There's no specificity about what purpose this cannon serves. Yes, it looks like the cannon that was used to shoot at the X-Wing and Y-Wing fighters in the final assault in the Battle of Yavin, but there's no planetary death cannon denoted on this playset, and this is this huge, massive cannon that sits at the top of the playset. As a child, it served double duty for me. It was both the cannon that would shoot at the X-Wing fighters, and then when I felt like it, it was the cannon that would destroy Alderaan or some other planet. Some people have pointed out that on the cardboard inserts, there's a circular design right here that would indicate this is the radar dish planetary death cannon, but it doesn't look anything like that. It's just another detail piece on this illustration. In fact, it looks more like an attachment for a gas or a gasoline hose on a motor vehicle. It doesn't have any definition that would indicate it's the radar eye of the Death Star. So that's up for interpretation. Do with it what you will, but in my universe, this cannon was always serving two purposes. Alright, let's get on to the main event.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
The Dianoga, the trash monster as we knew him growing up, is one of the most important and most often lost pieces of the Death Star playset. I got some questions after we posted part 3 as to why I didn't include this piece with the trash compactor setup itself, and that's because he is so rare. Interesting to note is that this action figure is so rare that he's been replicated and reproduced by enterprising Star Wars fans. He's usually made out of a more brittle plastic. This is an original, and you can tell because it's made out of a rubbery plastic. There's not going to be any copyright symbols that I can find on it to denote that it's original, but this one is a vintage original. And what's funny is that some collectors of vintage Star Wars that only collect the action figures have sought this character out and put him on display with the rest of their figures, even though they don't own a Death Star playset. So he's held in high regard among vintage Star Wars collectors. So let's put him back into the trash compactor. I'm simply going to set him down behind the wall for the purposes of storage. But there he is inside, and that's all complete now. Next are the outer surface panels of the Death Star. As is the case with most classic Kenner, these are cardboard pieces that have nice printed graphics on them. This is the exterior of the Death Star, and this is the interior. Now, there is a right way and a wrong way to put these in. As you can see, you wouldn't want the computer panel to be upside down, so you have to put it in this way. A lot of these got lost. Dogs ate them, water damage. They just got wrinkled, torn up, and thrown away every time the Death Star was disassembled. Maybe sometimes they got a hole accidentally punched through them during playtime. So these are kind of hard to come by, but they really are a glaring omission if they aren't with the playset. It just looks like a unfinished building. So let's get these in here. This one is for the bottom, traditionally, and then this piece with this eye is for the top, even though I still don't buy that it is the Death Star planet killer cannon. So let's put these in. You want to be careful with these because you don't want to fray the edges, but you want to get them in there on the rails and then just gently slide them through. Once they're lined up, they're pretty easy to manipulate. So there is the exterior surface of the playset. And then as you can see, I'm going to turn this around. You can see how it creates a nice environment on the interior of the playset, giving you realistic walls and control panels for your action figures to interact with. Now we come to the most frustrating stage, putting the stickers back on. Now, you saw in the Millennium Falcon restoration that this takes some doing. Fortunately, with the Death Star, there aren't as many stickers, and the stickers that I do have are still in pretty good shape and aren't very weathered. But you can't take scans of the decal sheets at face value. Here's a scan of the Death Star decal sheets just printed right off the file. And as you can see, the black levels are completely off. It doesn't have enough contrast. Whereas on this one, I color corrected it to make sure that they match up with the vintage decals. I'm going to take a few minutes, probably more than a few minutes, and cut these out with an X-Acto knife, and then I'll apply them to the Death Star and we'll see what the result looks like. One of the little quirks that the Death Star playset has in the Kenner lineup is that it has no decal placement instructions packed in with the playset. So if you go looking for scans of the instructions online to help you with this process, you're not going to find any answers. It seems to me that everybody just kind of made most of it up. Some of them were obvious, the ones for the back of the elevator core and the computer consoles, which I showed you earlier in this series. But the rest of these are very small, tiny little decals that I'm cutting out, and I have no idea where they're supposed to go, and Kenner didn't indicate where they should go. So I'm just going to make it up as I go along and try and be as aesthetically pleasing as possible. After wrestling with the stickers for about an hour, I was able to get them cut out and put in the right place, and it's looking far better in the interior of the playset now. And we have one more piece to put on there, the last and most rare piece of the Death Star playset, the swing rope. This is the rope piece that you're supposed to use to simulate Luke and Leia swinging over the chasm in the most famous part of the Death Star action scene. These are heavily replicated, though I would recommend you not get replicas because they're very low quality, they're very brittle. This piece is supposed to have some flex to it. As you can see, mine flexes slightly, though I'm being very gentle with it because this is 36-year-old, 35-year-old plastic. And we don't want to overstress it and break an original part. The repros will break like that. I mean, you stare at them the wrong way and they break. So I wouldn't recommend investing in one of those. If you can find an original, go for it. But you can tell it's such a small piece. It's easily lost. It's understandable why so many playsets don't have them anymore. And in the case of usage, I would just display it hanging on its own. I wouldn't put Luke Skywalker's hand through it because it involves trying to bend this piece at almost a 90-degree angle, and it's not going to hold up. I'm not going to risk it. So let's put this final piece on the playset, and then we are done restoring the Kenner Death Star playset from 1979. It's really amazing to see this playset finally complete after so many years, especially considering I never got to play with it as a child. And that's kind of a big regret because, as you can see, it's so cool. It has so many play features on it. It has so many little gadgets, and it has a working elevator. It's got all the little areas from the film, and it's all just so perfectly designed into one little pie slice of the Death Star. I mean, yes, they could have incorporated more things into it, but hindsight is 20/20. I look at this now, seeing it complete, seeing it with all the figures in it, and it makes me kind of resentful. I wish I could go back to being, 6 or 7 years old and getting to play with this when I was of that age where imagination was everything. So thanks for watching this restoration series, and we'll have another one soon.
You know what's going on? Maybe it's another drill.